So we should start our classes. What I do with my kids, especially now that I can't take my kids to school anymore. Every day when I would drive them to school, I'd say, and it's over. That era of my life is over, and I'm in mourning about it. But we would always go a one, a two, a one, two, three, go. Modeh lefanecha. Melech Chai
Chai
v'kayam
v'kayam
shehezarta
Zartai
b'nishmati
nishmati
bechem la
behem
bechem
la
la Rabba
Rabba
emunatecha
emunateha
Rabba emunatecha.
teha.
Yay. Okay. Well, I know it doesn't work so well in stereo, but it is quite okay. And just a daily affirmation is a good thing to do. A daily affirmation that it's a blessing to have life, and to be able to, imagine a day of productivity and greatness. So hopefully we'll all have a day that is meaningful for us and brings us a sense of inner calm. And that's my hope for everybody. And okay, so let's say our bracha for learning. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, and let me share my screen. Okay, thank you for that information. And I think we're recording, so we're good. And let's hope that all of this comes together. So my intention for this class is to really finish off our Tefillat Geshem, our prayer for the rain, for what we pray for rain on Shemini Atzeret. And then to move on to something new. And Pamela made the suggestion that we go to Birkat Hamazon, which I would love, 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 love to do, because when I was a Hillel director, I spent a lot of time with Birkat Hamazon. It's one of those spaces where one of those prayers in which students, I was working for the Reform movement at first, and then as a Hillel director, a space in which it's a pluralistic space, and the Reform kids on campus would just have no idea what this very long prayer after eating dinner was about. And I wanted to get into that. But that's next week, God willing. We so far we did the introduction to the Tefillat Geshem. We also looked at the first three stanzas. And just as a reminder from last week, I'm going to first show this. Let me show, oops, no, that's the wrong one. This one over here. I'm going to show just Hebrew. I'm going to show the pattern here. And so it's intentionally not in English. And I'm going to circle the patterns here. So we're going to see Zachor and Zachor. First, I'm showing the linguistic connection. Right? Those words follow each, what is it, 6 lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so every 5 lines is the word Zachor. And then we also see, and I'll make it nice and colorful just to add, and I'm doing a little bit of this in review because I don't think everyone here was there last week, that there's also this pattern, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion. Oh, cat. No. Nope. Sorry. You see that it's an acrostic, this prayer. And then the third thing that is a part of this pattern, I'm going to do this, is each line is Ka Mayim, Palge Mayim, Mi Mayim, Kol Mayim, and then Altimna Mayim, Ma'at Mayim, Ka Mayim, and you can even see it down here, even though I can't really highlight it. So you see that each stanza, each line of each stanza has, if I'm using the words correctly, has a rhyme pattern which emphasizes water, 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 water. Mayim, 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 hey, mayim bisason, right? Okay, and then the last piece of pattern is not really visible here, but will be if I clear all drawings and I shrink this page a little bit. And that is, I'm going to shrink it a lot, actually. You probably won't be able to see this so well, but what we have is Ba'avuro al timna mayim, betzidko chon chashrat mayim, Ba'avuro al timna mayim. And then there's, it alternates 1, 2, 1. So I love this because it shows that there were rules. It's sort of like when we learn about Shakespearean poetry and we learn about the sonnet form and we learn about iambic pentameter. This was part of the way people understood the relationship with language in previous generations. If you think about it, it's only been what, 100 years, maybe 200 years at this point, because we all age since blank verse or free verse in poetry. I mean, it really was not the way people did things in the past. In the past, part of the artistry was showing the ability to fit within a structure, and that structure was connected in, I think, many people's minds with a divine component. So, any questions up to that point? Because right now we're looking at the outer piece. We're not looking at the content itself. Okay, so moving forward with this a little bit. So last, I'm going to go back to including the English, and we'll do a quick review. We did the first 3 verses before, which are, and remember the idea here is that when we pray for rain, we are asking for zechut avot, which means the merit of our ancestors. So in this particular first verse, it's remember the father, the Av, who was drawn after you like water. And it's a reference we learned to Abraham, that Abraham went every place that God commanded him. That's a nice little way to say it. His blessing was like, you blessed him, right? We talked about this. You blessed him like a sprig of a tree on the streams of water. You guarded him, Genanto. You defended him like a magain, like a shield. You shielded him, and you rescued him from fire and from water. And that's a reference to the story of Nimrod, a midrash. At least that's how I interpret it. Although they have some other references here. But I know that there was a whole fiery furnace kind of a thing that happened with Abraham, and then you pursued him, or you sought him out. I like that, with his scene, when he sowed beside all waters. Yeah, that works. And then for his sake, do not withhold water. So you're reaching out in the name of Abraham, our ancestor who we know has merit. And whether we have merit or not, you promised him that we would be like the stars in the sky and like the sands on the beach. We would be growing and multiply. We would live. We would survive. So for the sake of his name, for the sake of the fact that you made that promise to him, do not prevent water. Do not withhold water. Al timna mayim. Similarly, there's merit to Isaac, right? And we know this idea of merit because we see it in the Avot, in the Amidah. We say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu ve'Elokei avotenu v'imotenu, Elokei Avraham, the God of Abraham. In other words, the God that you had a particular relationship with Abraham, you had a particular relationship with Isaac, a particular relationship with Jacob. Each and every one of them, you established this meaningful relationship and you gave them merit. And in that prayer, too, this is very similar to that. We're saying, because of your commitment to them, because of their merit, protect us. And that's why even when we are expelled from Jerusalem, and even when the temple is destroyed, all of that is in the backdrop of Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Be comforted, my people, because we're still God's people. We still have a covenant, even when we screw up. So that's Abraham. And then there's Isaac, right? The one whose birth was foretold, right? Let a little water be brought. And we discussed what that was. This is all review. You told his father to sacrifice him to spill his blood like water. That's a reference to the Akedah that we read on Rosh Hashanah. He too was dutiful to pour his heart out his heart like water. Water, 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 water. Chafar umatzah be'erot mayim. That's the part that's highlighted. He dug and found wells of water. That's, I think we remember that there were these wells that Abraham had dug, and the story goes that Isaac re-dug them after they had been filled up by the Philistines. Okay, and then this refrain, B'tzid kochon chashrat mayim, in the merit or in the of his righteousness, right? In his righteousness, grant us, you know, be kindly to us with abundance of water. So that's the other refrain besides Al timna mayim, do not withhold water. And then we went on to the third one, to Jacob, right? Zachor ta'an malko. Remember the one who carrying a staff crossed the Jordan's water. We talked about when he crossed over the water, that when Jacob and Esau were having their conflict, Jacob went on to the other side of the waters from most of his troops and his family, and he separated out to try to protect them. And it's there that he has that wild dream of the angels ascending and descending. And it was in that space that he crossed Jordan's River. He was single-hearted and rolled the stone off the mouth of the well of water. We talked about the many examples in the Torah of patriarchs who play a hero's role in moving stones off of water. It's not just Jacob. Eliezer, the servant of Abraham, meets Rebecca at the well. We heard about Zipporah and Moses. There's all these stories. This is a motif that you can read all about in Robert Alter's work. And anyway, it's being mentioned here. And then when he was attacked by an angel comprised of fire and water. When was he attacked by an angel? I don't think we discussed this last time, but we know that he wrestles with it, and out of that he gets a name change. Remember, he wrestles with this angel all night, and he gets kicked in the loin, and as a result, we're not allowed to ever eat flank steak because flank is out, whatever a flank is. But all of these are references in a poetic form to the tales and wonders of our patriarchs. And we just finished the third one, Jacob. All of that is review. And so now we're on to the fourth one. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Who logically would be the next one? Probably Joseph. But let's take a look. Zechor Mashui. B'tevat gomet min hamayim. Remember the one who is drawn in a basket of reed or of, how do they translate gomet? Papyrus, yes. Remember the one who was drawn in a basket of papyrus from the water. So that's an obvious reference to, and his name is written right there, Moshe Rabbeinu. Namu dalo dala. Dalo dala. Yeah, I once learned that verse. Dalo dala v'hishka son mayim, about whom they said he drew water and watered the sheep, right? Exodus 2:19. You can take a fast look at that. But he drew water and watered the sheep. That's the story of Zipporah, right? The daughters of Jethro, right? Let's take a look at that. It's 2:19. Vatomarna. I learned this when I was in rabbinical school. This particular verse, because I had to read it in the chapel in Jerusalem. Vatomarna ish mitzri v'hitzilanu miyad haroim v'gam dalo dalalanu vayashk et hatzon. Right? So he said to his daughters, "Where is he then? Why did you leave the man? Ask him to break bread." Moses consented to stay with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah as wife. Okay, so it's always fun seeing these stories because it reminds us of little tales of, the life and adventures of our superheroes here, and in this case, it's Moses, who was drawn from a reed basket and who they mentioned water in his narrative, and I'm going to, as a poet, put it into my poem about water related to Moses. They basically take anything they can find in the sources that refer to the person whose merit we're drawing from, and put it in if it relates to water. And then Sigulecha et samum lamaim, when your treasured ones thirsted for water, right? When did they thirst for water? Can anybody want to say something about this? I mean, it's kind of in the next line. It's really these two lines together, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Somebody
Sylvia.
else is talking.
No,
Oh,
you.
oh, okay. Well, they had several times, the Miriam's well dried up when she died. Have to bring up Miriam. Woohoo. And then of course he got angry. He hit the rock and, yeah, the water came.
Right, and there's the first time that this happens is a positive thing, and the water comes out, right? Because here it is, when your treasured ones, that's us, you and me, when your Jewish people were thirsting, right? When we tzamu lamayim, when we were dying of thirst, al hasela hach vayetzu mayim. Upon the rock, and Sela is a different kind of a word for rock. By the way, it's not the same Sela that we have in Psalms. That's with a hey. A Sela is a kind of a boulder, I think, is the way I interpret it, as opposed to an Evan. An Evan is also a stone. Hach, he struck. When you give someone lashes, you hika, you strike them. The Yetsu Mayim. And there's this great Israeli song that every once in a while when I'm around Avital, we'll go, Umoshe hika'asela vayetsu mimenu mayim. And then everyone yells, Mayim. Yeah, Sylvia got it. Umoshe hika'asela vayetsu mimenu mayim. Mayim. So again, Moses and water. And then and here we go. We had that line for Isaac. Remember Abraham? It was al timnu mayim. For Isaac, it was betzit kochon chasra mayim. And then for Jacob, it was all timnu mayim. And then once again back to betzit kochon. I love this liturgical poem. It's just so structured, like hyper structured. I feel like it is a scaffolding, an edifice that is completely, it reminds me a little bit of medieval Arabic art and architecture that is so precise with a very set pathway, right? And we just finished Samech. Here, let me just do the quick underlines. Samech, Ayin, and we're going to get to Pei. Okay, so what are we going to do for the next patriarch? Any guesses that you want to make? Well, let's see what happens. Zachor Pekid Shatot Tovel Chamesh Tvilot B'Mayim. Remember the servant or the lackey um, who they have a shatot, which means sounds to me like drinking. I don't know that word really, to be completely honest. Um, but he's dealing with 5 dips in the water, immersed himself 5 times. Who would be a temple appointee as they're translating, which is not what it actually says. Yes, Pamela.
It's the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur.
Yasher Koach. Perfect. Yes. And who would that be in the first round? That would be Aaron.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting to see all of this because, later on, and so I think this is actually pretty early as a poem because, and I think it may even predate the Zohar because what ends up happening is we have the tefillah, we have the Sefirot, and in that chart we have, you might predict this to be going Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, and so far it is consistent with that. And then Joseph, and then King David. Let's see if it follows that pattern. But anyway, so marchitz kapav bekidush mayim. He cleansed and washed his hands to sanctify them with water. Let's take a look at. Oh my gosh, my friend has a lot to say. Remember the holy temple appointee. Some commentaries explain the phrase Zachor Pakid Shatot as referring to Aaron the Kohen Gadol, but it is difficult to relate the rest of the verse to Aaron. This prayer refers to the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and the word Shatot is a synonym for the holy temple. And then it says, see Psalms 11:3, which, yeah, I don't know this word Shatot. I think it's worth taking a quick peek about what this parallel is to the Holy Temple, to the Beit HaMikdash, which is kind of a redundant translation. Holy Temple, Beit HaMikdash, Mikdash is sort of Holy Temple. Ki Hashatot Yehareson Tzadik Ma Pa'al. When the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous man do? That is interesting. I don't know this. Anyway, well, I think we'd have to go deeper into Psalm 11, which is not one that I'm particularly knowledgeable of, but it's a Lam Natseach. Okay, well, we can keep going. Okay, Koreh umazeh taharat mayim. Oh, wait, actually, let me click on this. His right hand was held above his right foot, the left hand above the left foot, and all were washed simultaneously. Okay, that's lovely. Koreh umazeh taharat mayim. He read, or he reads, and he is sprinkled the purification of water. Okay, that's part of the reading, I think, is also Yom Kippur. Let's see. They provided, oh, I see. They provided him with sages who read to him the service of the day. So it's more about the sort of like the altar boys kind of keeping things in shape. According to Rashi and Bardenura, they read the portion of the Torah dealing with the service of Yom Kippur and elaborated on its particulars. So we're both right. And he was sprinkled with purifying water because there is a purification rite that's part of Yom Kippur. According to the Mishnah, the Kohen Gadol was sprinkled with the purifying water of the red heifer during the days before Yom Kippur in case he had inadvertently come in contact with the dead. The ashes of the red heifer mixed with living waters provided the only means of purification for one who came in contact with the dead. So there you have it. Again, this is a reference to Aaron, but it's actually kind of not, is what the commentators are saying. It may be more about it says literally, remember essentially the high priest. But the person most aligned with that would be Aaron, who was our first high priest. Okay, Ruchak me'am pachaz kamaim. He was separated from the people, right? He was made far, right? Ruchak. Rachok means far away, so Ruchak was made far from the people. Pachaz kamaim, turbulent as water. So 7 days before Yom Kippur, they separated the Kohen Gadol from his house, and he moved to the official chambers of the Kohen Gadol. And you'll remember this is also echoes with the story in Exodus 19 that there is 3 days of separation between, women and men before the receiving of the word at Sinai, at the Mount Sinai. There's these days of separation to make sure that everything is nice and pure. It's a little bit puritanical, if you ask me, but that's the worldview, I think, of the rabbis in these days. So there you go. So he was separated from the people who were described as turbulent as water. In other words, the herding of cats he did not want to do, which is something I have to do. I have to herd this cat over here. Anyway, Bavuro altim namayim. So there you go. For his sake, do not, or for the high priest's sake, or for Aaron's sake, do not prevent water. Okay, and then the last one, Zachor Shnemasar Shvatim. This one's very direct. There's no hiding who they are. Remember the 12 tribes, Shehevarta Begizrat Maim, whom you brought, who you caused to pass over, Shehevarta, like avor, to pass over, with the declaration of waters. I think that's the right. This whole idea that when they went over the water, right? When they left Egypt, they went over the Red Sea in columns that were separated out, each one on their own. So each tribe kind of marched across the waters. So, which is kind of wild if you really think about it. Talking about a military operation, you got to take 600,000 men and probably 600,000 women across this sea of reeds and get them across in one fell swoop while you're being pursued by your enemy. Incredible organization. And we know the story of Nachshon ben Aminadav, who goes in and the waters open up. Well, he had to do that within the context of his tribe. Okay. So this is, remember the 12 tribes. That is, remember that generation that you took out of enslavement. Himtakta, whom you made matok, you made sweet, lamo, for them. Merirut maim, the bitterness of the water, right? There's me meriva, the bitter waters, and he cast the tree into the waters, and the waters became sweet. There's a place, Meribah, which is all about that. It was a rebellious place. But look, it's from Exodus 15, so it's actually within the Song of the Sea. So you can see it right here, 1525. 1525. So he cried out to God, and God showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. It's right after. Remember, they start to complain immediately after the crossing of the sea, and they start singing the song of the sea. He cried to God, and God showed him a piece of wood. He threw it into the water, and the water became sweet. There, God made for them a fixed rule, and there he put them to the test. Right? Vayim teku hamayim, and they sweetened the water. And there was that story. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, v'toldotam niv nishpach damam alecha kamayim. Their generations were drawn, their blood was drawn upon you like water. So that's martyrdom. That's remember the martyrs who died for the sake of Kiddush Hashem, for sanctifying your name, right? Their blood poured out like water. We hear that language all the time, right? So it's built into that. Tefen ki nafshenu afafu mayim. Turn because our souls are surrounded with water and is engulfed with woes like water. So here we're asking God to be merciful because of our miserable lachrymose history, all of our suffering over the generations. So you feel that this now feels like a later poem because it's acknowledging perhaps the Crusades. I don't have a date for this. And then it ends with B'tzidkan chom. For their sake, it's in the plural this time. For their righteousness, grant us abundant water. And that's the whole song. And then when you go back to Mashiva Ruach Morida Geshem, that's the first time you're going to say those words because we just finished Tefillat Geshem, and now we're going to start using these words, Mashiva Ruach Morida Geshem, in it. And then we have this beautiful thing, and I think we discussed it already at the end. Livracha v'lo liklala. We had this in the context of the prayer for dew. It also appears there. L'chaim v'lo lamavet, l'sova v'lo l'razon. Just beautiful for plenitude and not for starvation or scarcity or hunger. So that is it. I think it's a tremendous piece. It's really one of our prayer highlights. One of the great prayers. And I should have shown you that the alphabetical acrostic finished all the way to the letter Tav. So maybe that's why it goes as long as it does and not longer. And it doesn't mention David or Joseph, but it fans out to the 12 tribes as the last stanza. Okay, comments, thoughts, appreciations? I think it's an incredible liturgical piece. One of my favorites.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. So we'll continue next week with God willing with Birkat Hamazon. Yes, Pamela.
I read a commentary when they were talking about the 12 spies last week that said that one of the blessings of being in the land of Israel with not abundant water was that the people would learn to rely on God to ask for water. So this is it's the result of needing to ask for water being in the land of Israel, which doesn't have that much water to begin with.
Right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's great. Rabbi, thank you very much. But what is the name of this prayer in Hebrew?
Tefillat Geshem.
Thank you.
Sure. Although I'll say that some people will have other names for it. There's I was reading up in Encyclopedia of Jewish Prayer, which is a great little volume. And they just call it Zechor Av because those are the first two words of this part of the prayer, the part that goes through each of the people that we're asking from the merit. So, it might have other names, but it says a 6-stanza alphabetical poem recited according to the Polish rite by the Shliach Tzibor, the service leader, during Tefillat Geshem on Shemini Atzeret. So the whole thing is called Tefillat Geshem. The prayer of rain. And let's see, does it give any authorship? I don't see any.
So when did you say this is normally recited then? You just said at
Shemini Atzeret. It's only on Shemini Atzeret, right after Sukkot, right? We don't want God to rain on our parade.
Right.
Rain on our Sukkot. You know, I love that. I love how practical Judaism is. Like, we want the rain, but we don't want it
after we're sleeping outside.
Exactly. And everyone knows that if it is raining, you don't have to stay in the sukkah. You're not supposed to be miserable. So, all right. Well, next week, Birkat Hamazon, and God willing, I'll bring my rendition of the bencher of the Birkat Hamazon, the prayer for food, so that you can see it. It's all in one place and it's filled with commentary. And I'm very proud of this little thing I made probably 20 years ago. So I'll share that with you. And if I can find a link, maybe I'll even put it into the WhatsApp. All right.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good day, everybody.
Take
Thank
care.
Shalom, shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
No, I said shalom, shalom.
Oh, shalom, shalom. Okay.
Shalom, shalom, not Shabbat shalom.
All right. Bye-bye.
Oh.